You don't need another idea, you guys. You need a rhythm. You finally need a rhythm, one that's going to carry your business forward, even when motivation starts to fade. And that, on today's podcast, is what we're going to be building together. All right, friends, welcome back to another Re-Education Experience podcast. Today, we're diving into, oh my God, C number 5, episode 5 of this 7-part series around this rebirth, this reboot, this podcast-powered experience. And we're going to be diving into what I'm calling kind of like the heartbeat of the whole framework. And this is C number 5, which is equal to heartbeat time, cadence. All right, cadence. Maybe a word we don't use too often. If we kind of summarize where we've gotten today and how this C5 has gotten here, it's cadence is where, we started with courage, right? The courage to start, to move, right? Even though fear might be present, right? We found clarity, right? About like the who and the realtor we want to be, right? Then we had some clarity, we have some excitement. What happens is, I told you to pull back a little bit, counterintuitive about constraint, where constraint is where we now have to like focus in on the linchpin, right? That's the linchpin episode. And then last week we built onto this and we built capacity, the ability to actually hold the weight of your plan, right? And to carry this into a plan that's dealable. But now we have to go with this new container, we have to go to make some movement. Cadence is where your business, and if I were to kind of do this, begins to breathe a little bit, right? It's where the momentum, right? The momentum starts to get born. And this is not this thing of like giant leap, and then a big leap, and then a little leap. No, that's not cadence, right? When you think of cadence, what comes to mind is I was a piano player growing up. And then we had, my teacher would have this metronome, if you've ever done this. And I think that thing looked kind of looked like this. And there was like this thing that would go down and it would swing back and forth. And what it was creating the heartbeat for the song pace, right? And so this is what we're trying to build today. It's going to be these more like small, repeatable, quite similar things, just like our heartbeat is, all right? Okay, so we've covered a lot of C's together, and I always want to unpack the why around these things because, I mean, you're listening to this stuff, you're hopefully making changes in your business. Most agents, I think we know, are stuck a little bit in the chaos, right? This constant cycle of starting and then starting over again, all right? Starting over again. They get inspired, they create the plan, they may even start for a few days, and then the rhythm fades because life gets louder, and it's harder to kind of hear that rhythm that you planned, right? The shiny objects in this business, more than anything, show up constantly. It's impossible not to look around and rubberneck, right? And then, of course, with that happens, the results don't come right away because you've just started this kind of journey. The motivation will dip as well. And we don't always have it, right? I think cadence is kind of like the antidote. Is that how we spell it? Antidote, right? Is the antidote to that continuous cycle that just doesn't continue to get into a business, right? It's the rhythm that will keep you in the game. Keep you in the game, which would also be kind of like the drum beat that keeps your week going. And then that's the structure that we've hopefully built that matters most so that we don't get lost in the noise that I started this whole podcast back in episode 84 with, is that noise, and it's not getting less noisy. I remember an agent, if I think about this, that worked with, that had kind of all the right things going. Leads. A lot of us have like strong networks in this business because we get in because we're people business. But they were stuck in that roller coaster pattern. 1 month, crushed it. Like, Darren, 4 deals, right? Next month, I got nothing new. You're like, oh, frick, right? When we looked closer, we realized that the life rhythm was just not there. The business rhythm was not there. There was no cadence to the activities. Every week was more reactive than like rituals, right? Reactive than rituals. No planning. So what we did is we introduced 2 things that I always work on, 2 simple anchors. Again, I like the word framework. I like the word anchors because it brings us back. 1 weekly and 1 daily. Alone, these 2 things with an anchor on a week and an anchor on a day, it transformed the business to just be that consistent heartbeat that she needed, right? And it didn't mean harder again, right? Because we don't want more harder, right? She just needed a better Just needed a better beat. Okay. Again, if we go beyond real estate too, I've pulled up Amazon examples and Apple examples and all this stuff, right? When we look at professional athletes, the best performers in the world don't just show up on game day, wing it, and hope for the best, right? They have rituals in their training that they have, whether it's, resting, and then reviewing their video, and then training, and then maybe training harder, and then they'd have nutrition facts that they have to follow. Mental prep. I think about my days as a volleyball player at university. We had all of these things, and it was a rhythm to the consistency, right? That cadence kind of turns into performance when it exists. Without it, though, it's one of these, right? It's one of these. You find basketball players, you see this a lot. They'll sit there and they're building so many repetitions around that shot. Like I would assume Steph Curry, if he's sitting there with 3-pointers, he's in one spot, over and over and over again, building this cadence, building this muscle memory. And this is the same power that we can gain if we choose, right, to build this rhythm and this muscle memory of our actions in real estate to create some level of excellence in our business. If I'm going to define it, I always want to define these C's as I see them as I built this. So the definition that I want you to think about, cadence is the rhythm, it's the structure, it's the flow that turns your business into real life. Real life, consistent actions, just like the heartbeat. This is how we will do a few things, right? If we have the cadence right, it's going to do this. It's going to protect your priorities, right? It's going to protect your priorities that we've gotten so detailed on to this point. It's going to help you protect your priorities. It's going to go back to that word, anchor your habits, right? The ones that are going to be needed to do the things that we need to do. And it's going to allow us to avoid the distractions that the world will keep hitting us. And it's going to allow us to then go, as the weeks go on and life changes, to recommit back to all of the plan and the things that work and the things that got you here to what matters. It allows us to recommit forward. All right. So cadence is about replacing motivation, you guys, with momentum, right? Remember we showed that little dude at the top of the mountain, right? And if you come out of C3, you get the motivation, and then you need to understand the capacity bucket. So motivation at its peak can be contained and can be managed. And now we can turn this into momentum. So another mountain can get climbed, right? The business heartbeat. Okay. 2 rituals that I wanted to give you, 2 rituals that I use personally in my business that have worked for me. And they've changed everything for me. And they tend to be, if you put them into practice, they change it for anybody that deploys them, right? Simple, pretty powerful. So number 1, I call it the Sunday ritual. I actually say the Sunday pre-planning, right? Pre-planning ritual. So here's the thing. This is where you're going to check in with your week's goals. You need a time block for Sunday. And if I look to my calendar now, you'll still see that showing up. I tend to do it now in the mornings. I used to do it at 7:30 at night. That's what shows in my calendar. And I'd be just like here in the studio with my blacked out door. So when my kids would come to the window, they see it's all black. They're like, well, Dad's doing something. All right, Dad's doing something. We can't come in. And they started to learn that was my ritual on Sunday nights. I needed to get it done. I moved it to the mornings because I didn't actually want to miss their bedtimes anymore. So the pre-planning ritual is block time in your schedule on Sunday, right? Preparing you for the week. We're going to block in all those essentials, right? When we looked in the capacity bucket, you have some non-real estate stuff that needs to be. To have the right capacity, you need your energy, your time, your structure, your systems, all the things we talked about. And we're going to get these into the calendar, right? This will allow us to align your calendar on a weekly basis, which is really easy to see the end of. And it's also very current to what's going on because every week our clients are different, right? So are your kids' schedules, right? Align your calendar to what's coming. And then it allows you to filter the noise before the week even begins. So as you go to bed on Sunday night, you've already got the plan ahead of you. Now you just have to march. It's so much easier when you can just have to march rather than think about it. And then when the whirlwind hits you, have to go, right? It's not about trying to like squeeze in a bunch of work, because I've heard from agents as they start some pre-planning ritual on a weekly basis, it feels like it's a lot of stuff that they do, and it's like it feels like you're slowing down, but it's not, right? It's not more work. It's building. It's kind of or like it's building the guardrails, right? If this is the bowling alley, right, and you've got your thing, I don't know, 10. If you've got bumper pads here and you throw the ball, it's going to bounce back, right? So the goal here is to give yourself these bumper pads in life to bring you back to choice, right? So it's about building the guardrails so things don't veer off the track. So Sunday ritual, morning or night, doesn't matter. Block it in hard, commit to it. Put the essentials in, the things that are like non-real estate, and then put the essentials in that are required from a real estate perspective too. So if you're like me as a podcaster, well, there's a planning period where I have to decide, what did I do last week? What journey do I want to take them on, right? What will be the bullet points that I want to talk about? I got to frame all that out. Well, that happens not the day I'm shooting like I am here today. That happens and is blocked into my calendar at a creative moment throughout the week. That's an essential. Then eventually, if I want to turn it into a podcast, I need to plan the time to shoot it, and then plan the time to like provide the editing off to my editors. And then I have to plan the time to review the stuff that comes back prior to post, things like thumbnails and titles and all that stuff. So those would be the things that, based on your business plan, you're going to have to put into the business. Okay. So that's number one. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. If you've tried it before and haven't succeeded, and you've come this far in the journey with me, try it again. All right. Try it again. And maybe with all the C1 through C4, you're going to feel better about getting to this point. The second one I want you guys to talk about is this, the daily wrap up. I love this one. I actually don't remember where I came up with it or who I heard it from, but it's been this opportunity for me to recalibrate and reset. We know no matter how good you are with the calendar, the world's going to hit us. And how much we filter out the noise, things are going to still come in. And clients need us at times that we didn't think. And we're going to have to readjust, recalibrate, and reset. So for me, I put 15 to 20 minutes aside, and it changes how much time. And you have to do it at a moment in the day where you're transitioning. So in my case, I transitioned from a realtor guy to family dad, and then I shut off the rest of the world for a little while. I do that. It's actually when I picked up the kids and I drive them and I get home, I actually let them go into the house without me. I sit there in my vehicle and I recalibrate. And I go through what came throughout the day that threw me for a loop or that came my way that I need to get into the calendar. Maybe a time block didn't work out and I have to readjust it. And what I do is I do this moment to capture the DMs, the contacts, the schedule things, the new things, and I plan them and tweak them for the next day or whatever the next couple days are needed. This allows me to then transition to dad mode in a way that I'm present. I can look back and I'll be proud about. And I'm not having all these things linger in my head. And the longer they linger, I might forget them. I've done that a ton, but we don't, right? So we have to capture the chaos that popped up. We got to process the messages that came our way, the loose ends, all that mental clutter. And we have to adjust our schedules so that out of integrity for ourselves, when we built the plan, we readjust it so nothing gets missed later, because I know the day didn't go perfectly. So it's not the unplanned tasks that kill your business. It's the unprocessed ones. It's the unprocessed ones. So yeah, that's my personal anecdote. It saved me so much. If I think about let's think about a real world example about this. Musicians, right? They rehearse in the rhythm, right? So when they're kind of going through the process, they don't know just the notes. They know the tempo they have to follow. And if they understand the tempo they have to follow, right, they don't have to start thinking about everything that comes their way, right? A world-class drummer I wrote this down, doesn't need to think about keeping time, right? He's keeping rhythm internalized so that as they learn the notes, as they hit the beats, as they try new things, as long as the song cadence is achieved, they can play a little bit, they can have creativity a little bit, and they can come up with those new riffs. And that's kind of how our life goes, right? It starts to feel natural as long as we keep the tempo, and then we can allow the flexibility to kind of rip around, and that's how beautiful things happen, and we actually create life, right? Create life in this business. So how are we going to build cadence beyond these two tactics into our business? This is where I want to take a little bit from C1 all the way through C4 and then just kind of lock it down for you guys in motion. All right, if we can get that lock in there and put the key and then lock it down, we're going to be a happy camper at this point in the process. A couple questions for yourself to kind of lock this in. What is the minimum rhythm I can commit to weekly now? I've got the container, I've got the plan to support the goals, right? What is the minimum rhythm needed to achieve and support the goals, right? Second one would be, this is an important one, what's my non-negotiable block of time for whatever lead gen strategies and likely nurture strategies that you're trying to achieve? Without lead gen, we have nothing to nurture, right? If we have good lead gen, we need the nurture to convert, because then the harvest will never happen. What's my non-negotiable block? Right here in content creation in my world, if I didn't create the topic, I'd have nothing to ever tell you. Make sense? I didn't write that down. Non-negotiable block. All right. The third one that I wanted to bring up to you guys is, where in the week do you check in with yourself? Right? So this is where the daily wrap up happens. Where's that moment in time that you have that transition moment? And then is there a moment that you can kind of overarching, like a Mother Nature thing, check in to see, how's my energy, right? How's the plan looking? And just see, do I still have capacity to pull this off, right? What I would do, and I use a thing called the self-journal. And the self-journal would always ask like a little simple question. What are the lessons learned, right, from today? And that little like change in my business that I adopted this back in 2017 to do that quick check-in on lessons learned told me so much about myself. Is the time block at the right time? It is what continues to show up over and over again that is like throwing me off. And that lessons learned thing was my way to do this, right? So this isn't about being like a robot dude, right? And I've been pretty robotic in times in my career. It's not about building a robotic routine either that's so structured, but it's just something that feels like there's a beat and a rhythm to it. We can't control every minute. Some agents try to do it, and I've tried to do it. And when I tried to do too much, leave no white space, it actually cradled a little bit for me. But you do need to anchor to the most important things, right? If you're like if you're building a business with kids, we all know that's got its own little challenges. And when that happens, the kids become the excuse, because you say things like, I can't stick to my schedule. Something's always coming up. I can't believe it. So what we do is if we can't figure out how to pull that off as you try the journey, instead of like trying to plan the whole week, you could chunk it down a little bit, right? Instead, maybe we build a rhythm for you, not around just how the week goes, but maybe there's like 3 key fixed anchors that are going to root you. And what I mean by this is you've probably got a lead gen time, right? So why don't we just say Mondays are lead gen, right? Or maybe Mondays are planning, whatever that may be. And then Fridays, no matter what, is a check-in moment to just go back through and figure it all out, right? The rhythm might be more like you leave a lot more grace in between, but as long as you had a few anchor points along the journey, you have a better chance to succeed. But I'm going to challenge you. I've grown my business and my brokerages and my teams through all of these challenges too. I think you just got to kind of force those daily lessons to give yourself some traction, and then you can find ways to tweak life and you start to feel in control again. All right. So, what would be a real world example beyond real estate that I can think about quickly? I guess it would be like an author, right? An author doesn't write a whole book at once, but the good ones will say there's a set amount of time, morning or crazy late nights. I know authors do some crazy stuff, and they'll say, I'm going to write 200 words, 200 words a day. And that author may or may not do it all at the same time every day, but that anchor is I need to achieve that. So that whether life happens and things change, I can kind of do that X like Jerry Seinfeld, where like I would write a joke a day, but an author might say 200 words a day, right? And that's how we build that rhythm. While we're doing this, there's an ability here for the world to come our way. as you can imagine. When we're trying to build this cadence, the world is trying to act against us because it's noisier. The cadence that we commit to in itself helps you push away the shiny object syndrome that I know a lot of agents have. When we finally become in rhythm, those distractions kind of just feel a little less powerful, right? You're not personally as vulnerable anymore to just changing, right? And to go in a different direction, right? When you know your beat, it's easier to stay in it. But that takes some figuring out, you guys, right? At this point, you've come so far. You've come from courage, through clarity, sorry, I had to remember, to constraint, to capacity, and now we're not going to let you get derailed now, right? This is that lock-in moment. So if I were to ask you, what if the difference between chaos, which was what we talked about happens, and confidence isn't just more strategy, but now maybe it's more rhythm? Maybe because you know who you are, you know where you need to focus, you build in the capacity in your life, and now it's not so much about strategy, it's just, can I stick to this rhythm? See, the real growth you're craving is probably, you guys, 1 quarter-long Sunday ritual away, right? If you didn't need more intensity, I think you'd feel better, right? Most of us don't need more intensity, we need more intention. That's why I built this podcast. But intention to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, right? It's not the big successes. It's not the big leaps. When I think about my success story, and Brett and I, my business partner at Redline, 20 years now, we look back and there's a lot of things that have happened. But it's really rare that ever there's like a big giant forward leap that says like, oh, it was that moment. It's actually not. Like, it's actually really boring. But it's kind of cool when you think back to it. It was like, it wasn't just like one step. If it didn't happen, we'd all be different. It was more like a whole bunch of little ones over time. So I guess that's probably my only like superpower, is kind of putting this C into motion. And I want it for you guys too. So that's what I wanted to cover today in C = 5, the cadence. Hopefully it lands really hard. I want to thank you again for being on this with me. I want to invite you again into Rome, Realtors on a Mission, the free community where I unpack these and we take the lessons and go into workshop mode. And it's free for everybody. All right, so that was Cadence, C = 5. And what I hope is it gave you like a clearer view of how consistency can become, and hopefully does become, your greatest advantage over time. Right? It's probably the only one that I can think about was mine. Next week, we're going to turn rhythm that we've created into something else. We're going to turn rhythm into resolve. And the next C for you guys is commitment. So commit to being on the workshop, commit to joining us next week while we unpack this and get so close to finishing out this framework. Thank you once again for all your time. I appreciate you. Have a great day.